Well, now it gives me really such great pleasure to introduce a dear friend, an inspiration, and a model Presidian. Though before today she had not set foot on our campus. And that is Cheryl Dorsey. So delighted to have you here today, Cheryl. Thank you. Cheryl Dorsey is the president of Echoing Green, a pioneer in the social entrepreneurship movement. This global social venture fund has awarded over $30 million in startup capital to over 500 next-generation social entrepreneurs worldwide since 1987. Dorsey received an Echoing Green Fellowship in 1992, a year before I did, which is when we met, to help launch the Family Van, one of the first community-based mobile health units based in Boston. Cheryl has served in 2 presidential administrations as a White House Fellow and a Special Assistant to the U.S. Secretary of Labor, Special Assistant to the Director of the Women's Bureau of the U.S. Labor Department, Transition Team Member of the Innovation and Civil Society Subgroup of the Technology, Innovation, and Government Reform Policy Working Group, and Vice Chair for the President's Commission on White House Fellowships. She serves on several boards, including the Harvard Board of Overseers, the Seed Foundation, and Northeast Bank. In 2009, Cheryl was named one of America's best leaders by U.S. News and World Report and the Center for Public Leadership at Harvard's Kennedy School. And for 2010 and 2011, she was named as one of the nonprofit Times Power and Influence Top 50. Cheryl received her bachelor's degree in history and science, magna cum laude, with highest honors from Harvard and Radcliffe Colleges, her medical degree from Harvard Medical School, and her master's in public policy from the Harvard Kennedy School. She completed her pediatric residency at Children's National Medical Center in Washington, D.C., and it gives me great honor to welcome our commencement speaker, Cheryl Dorsey.
Good afternoon. Again, I'd like to say good afternoon to the 2013 graduating class at the Presidio Graduate School, as well as your family and friends assembled today to celebrate this most important milestone in your professional and personal lives. To the faculty and staff of Presidio, thank you so much for having me. You too must be incredibly proud of this graduating class, preparing to lead this truly innovative institution and take up the mantle as society's change agents. And to all current Presidio students and Presidio alumni here today, it is a pleasure to be amongst a growing cadre of committed leaders actively and collectively working to align business and public policy and create a new economy and, more broadly, a new society rooted in respect for both humankind and nature. As I said earlier, I'm truly honored to be with you all here this afternoon, and I thought it was really important to join you all for 2 primary reasons. First, when Bill Shudkin asked me to do something, I do it. You know him primarily as the president and CEO of the Presidio Graduate School. Yet Bill and I are longtime dear friends, having first met, as he said, when we were both Echoing Green Fellows in the early 90s. You know, at the time, Bill was a newly minted lawyer with a passion for social justice and environmental protection, and co-founded the Alternative for Community and Environment, or as we knew it, ACE. That was in 1993 when he received his Echoing Green Fellowship. It became the nation's premier environmental justice law center, squarely at the intersection of community development and sustainability. Subsequently incorporated officially in 1994, ACE went on to pioneer an organic and powerful bottom-up model for environmental organizing and advocacy. Its early work supported community leadership on environmental justice issues and provided legal resources for community partners. Major wins of ACE included helping defeat a proposed asphalt plant, which would have contributed more pollution to an area already afflicted with poor public health, and persuading the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection to install a comprehensive air monitoring station in the major commercial center of Boston's Roxbury neighborhood in response to high asthma rates and increased understanding of the dangers of diesel bus and truck exhaust. You know, second, as someone who runs a fellowship program for young emerging social entrepreneurs, I really couldn't resist the opportunity to speak before students of the top-ranked social entrepreneurship graduate program. I'm clearly among kindred spirits today. For as you know, social entrepreneurship blurs the boundaries between civil society, the state, and the market. The term embraces a wide range of activities, organizations, and individuals, including NGOs, commercial enterprises, and entrepreneurs that aim for social and economic value creation. In this new and evolving blended reality, it is your newly minted skill sets and maturing sensibilities that will continue to help bridge the divide between commerce and the common good. So for all of you who don't know Echoing Green, our mission is to unleash the next generation of talent, like you all here today, to solve the world's biggest problems, social problems. It was founded 25 years ago to scout out young leaders on leading college and university campuses, and it has become one of the world's foremost angel investors in emerging social entrepreneurs. So through an annual global social business plan competition that last year alone attracted close to 3,000 submissions from 120 countries around the world, Echoing Green, as Bill mentioned, has provided millions of dollars in seed capital and support to close to 600 startup social entrepreneurs working in over 49 countries and over 40 states across the U.S. Some of today's leading social entrepreneurs and their organizations got their start through Echoing Green. These include Wendy Kopp of Teach for America, Michael Brown and Alan Casey of City Year, Eric Adler and Rajiv Vinakoda of the Seed School, our nation's first urban public boarding school, Katie Redford and Tyler Giannini of Earth Rights International, the very first NGO to successfully sue a global multinational corporation for gross human rights abuses, and Vikram Akula of SKS Microfinance, which went public on India Stock Exchange in 2010, reaching at its peak over 7 million borrowers and disbursing more than $5 billion in microloans. Echoing Green invests at the outset in people deeply committed to driving positive social change and has over the years created a global network of world-class leaders. Ultimately, the approach has shown that this most patient form of capital can lead to significant returns on investment. When we look back at a representative sample of our investments, we found that close to 67% of the social entrepreneurial organizations launched with Echoing Green support are sustainable over time. Compare that with the vast majority of new ventures, be they nonprofit or for-profit, that fail. 85% of the next generation leaders identified and supported by Echoing Green remain committed to the public good in key leadership positions, such as Providence, Rhode Island's first Latino mayor, Angel Taveras, award-winning author and journalist, Philip Gorovich, and someone you may have heard of, Mrs. Michelle Obama. In terms of leveraging dollars for social good, just the top 10 organizations in our portfolio alone are generating annual revenues in excess of $750 million per year. These are dollars directed towards the public good, to social good. I thought it was important to spend at least a few minutes on Echoing Green's history, our work, our track record, because over the past 25 years, we've learned a tremendous amount about social change, about leadership, about passion and purpose, about transformation. And it is my hope that some of the key lessons we've learned over the past 2 decades are of value to you graduates, are applicable to you as you prepare to embark on your own journey of discovery, your own journey of fulfillment and social impact. So what are these lessons? For Echoing Green, 4 lessons stand out. 4 observations merit some discussion this afternoon. So the first lesson, coming from someone who runs essentially a social business plan competition, may strike you as odd. But the lesson is the entrepreneur always matters more than the business plan. Or as we say at Echoing Green, the jockey is more important than the horse. That's because at its core, at its fundamental essence, entrepreneurship is about the transformation of human capital, risk-taking, imagination, commitment into value, economic value or social value. So what is it that we see in top social entrepreneurs? Over the years, we've tried to codify the winning leadership qualities and traits into a selection filter. We call it at Echoing Green Social Entrepreneurship Quotient, or SEQ, taken from Daniel Goleman's concept of emotional intelligence, or EQ. So the 4 pillars of SEQ are perspective, purpose, point of entry, and power source. We really do believe that the world's most successful social entrepreneurs exhibit each of these in abundance. And let me just walk through them quickly. So what is perspective? Successful social entrepreneurs come with a natural lens through which they view the world. It's a lens that conjures images of shared humanity and common dignity. The causes they undertake are inextricably linked to both their core values and their personal experiences, and always bend toward equality of opportunity for all. So, for example, take the amazing journey of Kennedy Onede, a 2010 Echoing Green Fellow from the streets of Kibera, Africa's largest slum, to Wesleyan University, where in June 2012, Kennedy became the first person ever from his Nairobi community to graduate from an American university. Kennedy's firsthand experience instilled in him a deep belief that access to education and basic services like clean water, sanitation, and healthcare are universal human rights. Witnessing the harsh realities in Kibera for the women whom he loved, from his mother to his sisters, Kennedy posited that one of the best ways to combat gender inequality was to uphold the value of girls through the provision of key community services. With Jessica Posner, Kennedy co-founded Shining Hope for Communities, a comprehensive community development organization that includes Kibera's first tuition-free school for girls, a healthcare clinic, a biolatrine project that builds clean toilets, a clean water project, and other critical community services. You know, Shining Hope already has served more than 30,000 Kibera residents, and with an aggressive growth trajectory, has rapidly become a leading development initiative in that community. The second quality that we see is what we call purpose. Top social entrepreneurs are driven by a sense of purpose and have a particular vision of social change that is ultimately more important than one social solution. They are warriors for their cause. And this cause-based commitment often propels them to the vanguard as social movement leaders. So for example, Priya Haji, a 1993 Equity Green Fellow, Bill's classmates, has spent a lifetime fighting for social and economic equality. As a recent Stanford University grad in the early 90s, she co-founded and led Free at Last, which became a national model for community-based substance abuse treatment and HIV/AIDS intervention for African Americans and Latinos. It eventually served 3,000 people a year in East Palo Alto and raised more than $20 million in special investments. Her second venture, after she went on to graduate from business school, was a company called World of Good, an online retail marketplace and wholesaler of sustainable goods that created market access for poor women artisans in 55 countries and was acquired in 2010 by eBay. Priya's most recent venture seeks to stem the crisis of debt confronting millions of Americans. It's called Save Up, and Save Up is a new personal finance company that rewards users for financial responsibility and is the nation's first free rewards program for saving money and reducing debt using a point system. So the third quality, point of entry. You know, we found that the most successful and effective social entrepreneurs also possess a unique grasp of how to enter situations to achieve results. Again, this is a quality we call point of entry. These leaders demonstrate a very special sort of savviness, a savviness that is grounded in asset-based thinking. It's a perspective that relentlessly seeks to maximize the strengths, the talents, and opportunities present in any situation. Perfect example, Andrew Yoon. Andrew was a 2006 Echoing Green Fellow. Andrew parlayed time spent as a strategic consultant for a Fortune 500 company and a transformative MBA summer internship experience in Africa into one problem of chronic hunger in Africa. Andrew stumbled upon the extraordinary irony that the hungriest people in the world are farmers. Interestingly, and he became increasingly convinced that the solution to this crisis lay in farmers' own fields. He went on to co-found an organization called the 1 Acre Fund, which takes an integrated value chain approach to empowering the poorest rural farmers in Kenya and Rwanda, providing them with farming inputs, training and capacity building services, as well as access to markets. By moving away from stopgap measures like food aid to an investment approach, the organization is beginning to unlock the permanent growth potential of these farmers. In less than 6 years on the ground in Africa, 1 Acre Fund has helped triple the harvest, and double the income per acre for 125,000 subsistence farmers and their families, with the goal of reaching millions more in the next 10 years across sub-Saharan Africa. The last pillar of SEQ is something we call power source. You know, the world's leading social entrepreneurs develop an extraordinary ability to enlist others in their cause. They become evangelists for their cause, and they have an amazing ability to attract significant financial and other support. This quality is something we call resource magnetism. It's a stickiness of the leader, but it's not the same thing as charisma. It's something beyond that and can be measured directly through outcomes. Take Sarah Horowitz. Sarah's a 1996 Echoing Green Fellow. Sarah, at the time of her work, was a third-generation union lawyer. Her dad was a labor lawyer. Her grandfather was vice president of the International Ladies Garment Workers Union in New York City. You know, early in her own career, Sarah quickly recognized that existing labor laws and regulations simply didn't jive with the country's increasingly independent and mobile workforce. So she set about rethinking unionism from first principles. Sarah went on to found something called the Freelancers Union, a new support system for the country's independent workers that brings freelance workers together to create power in markets and power in politics. Freelancers Union, which The Economist deemed the new unionism, has now grown into a $100 million self-sustaining social enterprise with more than 177,000 members in all 50 states. Freelancers Union was actually recently selected to sponsor co-ops or consumer-operated and oriented plans in New York, New Jersey, and Oregon as part of the Affordable Care Act with a $340 million in federal funding. Launching in 2014, these cooperative health plans will help expand health care to the nation's 42 million independent workers. So that's SEQ, qualities that we see in our social entrepreneurial leaders. So the second lesson I'd like to share with you this afternoon may also seem a bit odd on this day of great achievement and accomplishment for you all, but the lesson is to embrace failure. In fact, to celebrate failure. You know, Echoing Green has spent a lot of time over the past few decades trying to build the kind of ecosystem that incents the right risk-taking. You know, putting in place the kinds of systems that entice nascent innovators to roll up their sleeves, put in the time, and take the risk to transform great ideas into system-changing breakthroughs. You know, part of these efforts include rewarding efforts and not necessarily results. It includes tolerating, even celebrating failure. You know, especially for startup social entrepreneurs, rewarding efforts and not necessarily results removes the pressure of producing short-term and often incremental improvements on established results. Next generation ideas take not only time, but perseverance. Innovators constantly hit dead ends and retool and then encounter further failures along the way. Giving them the leeway to determine how to direct their efforts encourages the kinds of risks that lead to big ideas and breakthrough solutions. You know, as further reinforcement of effort over easy results, Echoing Green, as I mentioned, truly celebrates failure. We do so in part to remove the shame and stigma so many high-achieving, accomplished young people, like many of you, place on stumbling. Failure is part of the process of exploring what does and does not work. And we have tried hard to underscore in our messages that smart failure is a critical part of the nascent social entrepreneur's journey. You know, we ask our fellows to highlight their learnings from failure in their quarterly reports to us as staff, and better still, to share these lessons during our leadership retreats. So, you know, one of our most popular retreat workshops is led by the current CEO of Public Allies and a top social entrepreneur named Paul Schmitz. And it's called The Worst Practices of Social Entrepreneurship. And his presentation begins with a picture of him in a dunce cap. And it has him reviewing his 14 biggest mistakes as a young leader. You know, it's a real-life tale of managing and growing an organization, and it inherently gives permission to our fellows to open up about their mistakes because they come and they are inevitable, but they're key parts of learning. And you know, failure is such a consistent and popular theme for all of our fellow gatherings and conferences that now fellows are even leading their own sessions on the topic and are sharing ways that they bring a tolerance for failure into their own organization. So Echoing Green's third lesson is to embrace agnosticism. It might be of interest to you once we get underneath that term. So what does that mean? So most of you already know that in pursuing for-profit investments, angel investors like Echoing Green venture capitalists often concentrate on specific industries or sectors. And the reason is simple enough. You know, that's where these investors have expertise and it often takes a critical mass of people with similar education, backgrounds, and experience to come up with a cutting-edge idea. You know, at Echoing Green, we really believe that we get our best results by remaining agnostic and funding the strongest chance for outcomes regardless of specific field. You know, a traditional investor might be skeptical of our bias to remain open to all the areas in which our social entrepreneurs work, both programmatically and geographically, and underscore the value of choosing a particular area in order to deepen expertise, observe trends, and recognize patterns. You know, we are really deeply committed to this approach for a number of reasons, including a belief that because we don't approach policy or subject matters from a particular point of view, we are as receptive as we can be to innovators whose new ideas may truly go against the grain, but be worthy of investment to disrupt the status quo. The status quo, as manifested through norms, through perceived wisdom and common practice, is really a bomb. It lulls all of us into acceptance and tamps down the very act of questioning why things are the way they are. And for those of you who are committed to a career in social change, let me tell you that the status quo will be one of your most persistent and worthy foes. And you will know that the battle has been joined when you encounter one of the status quo's most powerful cudgels, shame. The status quo will telegraph to you that your dreams are naive. It will signal to you that your vision for a better way is simply not possible. And recognize the stigma that you high achievers all place on failure. It's going to confirm that it's just better not to fail, meaning that it's simply better not to try. You know, ironically, while the status quo persists in part because of the entrenched attitudes of those who simply cannot imagine a world any different from the one in which they live, it's ultimately your imagination, your collective imagination, that holds the key to breakthrough, innovation, and transformation. So the fourth and last lesson I'd like to share with you relates to the way Echoing Green does its business. You know, our grueling social business plan competition with an annual acceptance rate of less than 1% really does bubble up the best social change talent by challenging applicants to articulate why they do what they do, how they will do what they do, and why our very limited resources are best invested in them. You know, the best of these social change business plans are manifestos of purpose. They're manifestos of purpose. They're blueprints for walking through the world with meaning. And that's what I wish for each of you as you lead Presidio, a pathway for finding your purpose. So I will ask for your forgiveness in what I'm about to say, but I don't much care about the terrific job you've accepted because of your stellar performance here at Presidio, or your starting salary, or the agreed upon job title etched on your soon-to-be delivered business card. Rather, with every fiber of my being, I believe that your core identity, you know, who you truly are and what you are meant to do in this world, is as intrinsic as your DNA. It's etched in your soul, and it's ultimately your job. It's really your only job and your responsibility in the next few years to figure out what it is, because that's how you'll get to true impact in this world. So it's funny, if someone had said to me 25 years ago when I was in your seat graduating from medical school and public policy school, I would have thought, okay, my purpose is to be a really good community-based pediatrician. It's what my family expected of me, it's what I had been trained for, and there were really clear rules of the road for that kind of career trajectory. But what I couldn't see then, when I was your age, was that all of my schooling and training were simply complements to, and not roadmaps for my life. Rather, if I had mined and analyzed the collective experiences I had had over the years, if I had been more cognizant of the things that I had been drawn to and mesmerized by, if I had actually recognized the power of my gut as a really valid form of intuitive data, and if I had valued as highly the accolades I received for my EQ as I did for my IQ, I would have owned fully, many years ago, my unique purpose and position as what I call an effective cultural translator. Okay. So clearly, I'm an African-American. I'm an African-American native of Baltimore, Maryland, by way of North Carolina, who grew up in a Jewish neighborhood in Pikesville. It was one of the first to be desegregated in the 1960s. So I sat in public school classes with my white friends, and I ate lunch with my black friends. I had way too much fun at the steady stream of bat and bar mitzvahs, as well as the stealth blue light in the basement R&B parties when parents were out of town. I loved the holidays because I got my first set of presents at Hanukkah, and then I got my second set of presents at Christmas. I was an okay violin player in my high school orchestra. I think I was third chair, making my way through Bach and Beethoven and Vivaldi. And I couldn't wait to get home to listen to the latest rap songs by groups like the Sugar Hill Gang, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, and Curtis Blow. And by the time I got to medical school and received support from Echo and Green to help start the mobile health unit that Bill mentioned, the family van, a mobile health unit for disadvantaged residents, I spent the mornings as a graduate student in the hallowed halls of Harvard Medical School. And then in the afternoons, I would walk across the subway tracks into the mean streets of Boston. A short walk, but a world away, a world apart in terms of opportunity and possibility. And now in my current day job as president of Echo and Green, I walk between the worlds of social justice on one hand, social innovation on the other, Main Street on one hand, Wall Street on the other hand, and change versus tradition. And it's interesting, I've come to realize that I belong both nowhere and everywhere. I'm comfortable across the man-made barriers of race and class, pedigree and politics. It's interesting, as the child of a French teacher and a Spanish teacher, maybe it's actually not so ironic that I turned out to be a translator too, but a cultural translator, bridging the divide between groups who ultimately have much more in common than they do apart. So ultimately, it turns out that that is my role to play in the world, and I really do think I play it quite well. It took me about 25 years to figure it out, but better late than never. So the question and challenge I leave each of you with today, as you graduate from Presidio, is to ask you, what role will you play in making the world better, making the world safer, and making the world more equitable? What a gift life has provided you, with the talent, with the education, with the support, and this historical moment to really figure that out. So I can just leave you with this wish that I really just wish only the best for you as you begin your own quest. And in no small measure, because folks like me and my generation are really counting on you. So congratulations again. Thank you for your time, and best of luck as you set out into the world. Thank you.